Welcome to the Atheist in Recovery podcast, where we talk about finding hope in recovery. And now your host, Dr. Adina Silvestri.
Well, hello guys, and welcome to episode 12 of the Atheists in Recovery podcast. Today is a solo episode where I talk about 5 ways to find forgiveness when you are an atheist or agnostic, or you do not subscribe to a prayer answering higher power. So if any of those descriptions sound like they fit you, keep on listening. Forgiveness is something that I talk a lot about in my private practice. And, it's a difficult concept to explain. Mostly because, if you're human, you've had to go through the process of forgiveness at one point in your life. And growing up as a Catholic, I went to church, I had religious classes, all the way through high school. Even my higher education, one of them was at a Catholic university. And so, I am familiar with all things holy, and knowing that, the process for Catholics is that you sin and then you ask for forgiveness. But for me, growing up, I don't think that it was my forgiveness that I worried about. It was, having people ask for forgiveness from me. Well, you've done me wrong, and so, do I grant you forgiveness? It wasn't about me, ironically. It was about them. And so anyway, I say all of that to say that now, as an adult looking back, perspective, it's, you have to have that foundation. If not, where do you learn the process of forgiveness? Sure, it could be from your family, I suppose, but I think for most people, we're going to get it from our religious and spiritual backgrounds. And so when clients come to see me and nothing seems to be working, we move on to the church that they maybe stopped going to when the addiction got really bad. We go there, and it's, I find that even though for me, myself, leaving the Catholic Church behind, I've never really left that collective spirit, that commonality that we all have that's interwoven, that human element. So let's move on. Let's talk about the 5 ways to find forgiveness. As you can tell, I am a big fan of this topic. Okay, number 1, forgiveness. It has many health benefits. It really does. So resentment is like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die. I really like that quote, and I'm not sure where I stole that from, but, it's resentment is like carrying all this baggage. And, you have to ask yourself, what am I gaining from doing that? What am I gaining from resenting this other person and their wrongdoings? So forgiveness is a decision to let go of that resentment and thoughts of revenge. I am going to now talk to you a little bit about this story. So get ready for story time, guys. In 1995, Azim Khamisa's only son, Tariq, apologize if I'm butchering these names, a 20-year-old student, was killed delivering pizzas in San Diego. Azim, an investment banker, was sitting at his kitchen table one afternoon when the phone rang. He picked it up, and the voice on the other end of the phone was a police officer telling him that his son was dead. The killer, a 14-year-old named Tony Hicks. The father said he felt like he left his body because the pain was too much to bear. Over the next few weeks, Azim survived by turning to his faith and found forgiveness, ultimately reaching the conclusion that there were victims at both ends of the gun. Azim reached out to Plex Felix, the grandfather and guardian of Tony Hicks. The first time they met, Azim said he felt no animosity towards Felix's grandson, Tony. Plex was quick to take the offering of forgiveness. Now, both men give talks to schools about their story of forgiveness. Azim spends much of his time promoting the vision of his late son's foundation, an organization committed to stopping children from killing children. Why talk about this story, this true story? Because I feel like it's the opposite of resentment. It's Azim's story is what can be found when one follows steps to forgiveness. I can't imagine the extraordinary grief that one feels when losing a child. But somehow he never felt vengeance. He relied heavily on his Islamic faith, which told him that compassionate acts are spiritual currency, which speed the soul's journey. I'm going to say that again. Compassionate acts are spiritual currency, which speed the soul's journey. Azim knew he could not carry this burden of loss alone, and so the journey to healing began. So I just want to highlight the point that we cope and we survive in groups and collectives. Okay. Number 2. Another way to find forgiveness is to know that this is the commitment to a process of change, whether it's self-forgiveness or not. You have to start by asking, what do I gain from this? What do I gain from this forgiveness? And I bet you would be surprised to learn the answers. Number 3. Forgiveness is about rewriting your grievance story. And so I really like this step in that it reminds you that you don't have to live in the past of what happened to you, or maybe something that you had done to someone else. You get to be the heroic part of the story. And the heroic piece of what you're doing in the story is choosing to forgive. And I've heard over and over again in my work that self-forgiveness is truly difficult. And so I get it. And sometimes that's when the narrative comes into play, and it could be an actual story that you write. And sometimes just journaling really helps individuals getting their thoughts onto paper and just organizing them and looking at them and being very curious about them. Maybe it's a story that you tell via art, or maybe you're a musician. Get on that piano or strum those guitar strings. Maybe you're a singer or a dancer, or you're in theater. Any way that you can tell the story, whatever works for you. But the important piece is to make sure that you are the heroic figure in that story. Forgiveness starts with you. Just want to highlight that piece again. Okay, step number 4. Get rid of expectations that you have for people or for your life. This is also something that comes up a lot. And you have to recognize that you have these unenforceable rules for yourself. And you also have them for others. If you have them for yourself, you definitely have them for others. If you're a perfectionist, then you also believe that others need to be perfectionists. And so being just, again, very curious about your expectations that you have for self and for others. How is it going to help me to stay in this place of unforgiveness? What am I giving up? Time, energy, stress. Stress causes illness, and on and on. Step 5. I may have mentioned this already, but it starts with you. Forgiveness is about personal power, whether you are the one seeking forgiveness or you are the one that is being sought out for the request. And so it starts with you. You're the one that needs to take the others off the hook. Okay? And so being in the state of unforgiveness is like being on a giant hook. Next to you is the person who hurt you. It might also be you. And this hook is extremely painful. So wherever you go, so does the hook, so does the offender. And we have to let the other person off the hook first so that we could also get off the hook and start this process of forgiveness. So if I haven't highlighted it already, the benefits of forgiveness are massive. And it's a process. It's a big process. I only went over 5 ways. I could probably name another 10. But, when we let go of forgiveness, we let go of bitterness. We let go of resentment. We let go of anxiety, stress, hostility, anger. I know a little bit about anger, and it's a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So if you could lower your blood pressure and have fewer symptoms and a stronger immune system, isn't it worth it to go through this process? I want to add some step work into this as we round out our 5 ways to find forgiveness as an atheist or agnostic. So step 4 was one that kind of stuck with me as I was figuring out what I wanted to say today about forgiveness. Step 4, for those of you that are not aware, in the AA literature, is that you make a searching and fearless moral inventory. Yes, step 4. I believe that many people say step 4 takes the longest, and I assume that is correct. It takes the longest because you have to look at, the hard stuff. Yeah. And the part that you played in it, and taking responsibility and all of those fun things. But I think that it relates to forgiveness in that you have to have courage. And courage comes, again, from self-love. And courage has nothing to do with the absence of fear. Courage is about facing into the fear, leaning into the fear. And so if you have a good process in place, I feel like you're only setting yourself up for success when it comes to forgiveness of yourself and of others. Okay, guys, I hope this little snippet of forgiveness was helpful to you. And just, again, know that everyone is suffering in their own way with their own baggage. And if we just offer to help someone else carry their baggage just for a little while, a couple steps, a block or two, let me help you carry your baggage. I think that it would take us farther in the long run. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show. One more thing before you go. If you are interested in receiving a weekly dose of goodness from me, a couple of tips and tricks and inspiration to end your work week, please head over to atheistsinrecovery.com and sign up for the newsletter. Like I said, it's once a week, and the newsletter is very short. Only a couple of tips and tricks and cool things that I've gathered throughout the week. Would love to see ya. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening to the Atheists in Recovery podcast. For more great info and to stay up to date, head over to atheistinrecovery.com.